To another video. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to edit in Lightroom. I should mention that this is how I edit. I edit very flat. I make sure that everything is showed and everything's exposed properly. Nothing is overexposed. As you can see, even these lighter parts where the sun was shining in, these parts are still exposed, and even these shadows, like here, like right here. This was very dark. This is very exposed right here. This photo right here I've already edited, so I'll be editing this photo and a few others today. I took a couple hundred photos that I got to go through, and I'll show a few examples along the way. So right now, the first thing that you're going to want to do is straighten it and crop it. So as you can see in this photo, this is obviously very crooked. You can there's a few ways you can tell, but obviously I know to my eye this is very crooked. So first, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to go up to this crop section, and click the crop, and then down here in this menu right here, obviously you have the angle that you can manually adjust it, but this never really works right because your eye can never do it perfectly. So what I do is you click this little ruler next to the angle text. You click this, and now you're going to want to drag this on a straight horizontal surface. So you see this right here, this one of these steps here. This is a horizontal surface that I know is level, so I'm going to do that, and then Lightroom is going to level that photo for me. And now you can see that the steps are level with the photo, and the railings are level, and while the mountains may not be level, obviously the mountains are on a slant, so this photo is now level. Alright, next thing I want to do is I'm going to want to bump up the saturation. So it's default at 0, but I'm going to put it up about plus 20. I'm going to play with the color a little bit later. Next thing I want to do is up the shadow. As you can see, these areas, and off in here, these are very dark, and then off in here, these are very dark, and then right here, these are very dark. So I'm just going to want to up these shadows. Very simple. Just like that. And those are upped. I'm also going to want to up the blacks because that's kind of the other darker sections of the photos. And then I'm also going to want to down the highlights because the highlights are kind of the lighter parts of the photos, like the sun. That makes that sun not as harsh. And then I'm going to want to adjust the temperature, which I believe was fine before. I should not have messed with the temperature. So Lightroom automatically does the temperature for you. Alright, next thing I'm going to want to do after I do the shadows is just do a basic tone curve. I'm just going to bring up that a little bit and bring down the shadows. I know this seems counterintuitive because we have just brought up the shadows, but this just gives the picture a better conveyance. Down here in the HSL and color, I should also mention that when you first load up Lightroom, or if you're new to Lightroom, all of these tabs are going to be closed. So all that I'm referring to when I go to here is toning curve, that is this, and then the HSL color sliders. Right, so these HSL color sliders, these are pretty these are pretty basic. You know, you can adjust the hue of all these different colors right here. So for this green, I want this to be more of a deeper green. But so as you can see, when I drag this, you can see up in the picture that some of those parts are moving. This is more advanced. If you do not want to do this HSL color, you obviously don't have to. So I'm just going to adjust the hue based on my preference. I want these to be darker. As you can see, these are now darker green, these leaves, or these needles. Whereas you can see now they're lighter green, darker green. I want to leave them darker. And then I'm actually going to up the saturation from this panel too. Right. That gives all that. I do actually want to saturate this trailblaze a little bit, so I'm going to go to the blue color slider. I just want to, I'm just going to want to saturate that specific trailblaze without blowing out the sky beyond those trees. All right, so right here, this is what I would call a good edited photo. Here is another one that is similarly taken, so you can obviously see the difference between these two. You know, this one's brighter. I am actually going to up the saturation and vibrance just a tad for that one. So as you can see now, everything is nicely lit, everything is exposed, and everything looks good. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Alright, so right here I have this nice photo of the snow coach. This is about halfway at Mount Washington, for those of you wondering. The first thing I obviously want to do, this should be fairly obvious, is I want to get these tracks out, because I'm going to be uploading this to a stock photo website as an editorial, because obviously of this number plate right there, and obviously this is a branded vehicle. So I'm going to want to get this perfect. So I'm first just going to want to up the shadows a lot. Not too much, but obviously I want to expose that undercarriage there, or that, the main features of this vehicle right here. And then the second thing I want to do, you may notice that the sky is very, very kind of blurred out. I'm going to use another feature on Lightroom called painting. It's this brush right here. You can see this brush, and basically what this does is you take this you take this, you can see the outline. You take this and you basically paint on a certain area to effect. So I'm just going to paint up here. By default, it is brighter, but you can adjust it, and I'll show you that in a minute. So I'm just going to paint the areas that I want to affect. Obviously, if this was a straight sky, like if this was just sky and then immediately land, I could apply a graduation filter, but this is not, because it's kind of a special shape, right? So I've done all that, and obviously this is too bright, so I'm just going to bring this down a little bit. Now there are a few things that we can do now that we have the sky selected. Obviously, as you can see, the sky is selected. If I do that, brighten the sky, just like that. Now obviously this isn't going to be perfect, so you're not going to want to make these changes too dramatic. Anyway, so I want to keep that about there, and that just about works. I'm going to want to I'm going to want to up the clarity a little bit. That's something that you can do with these skies. That gives it a bit more, and then maybe mess around with the texture. That gives the sky a bit more of a texture. And then there's obviously a few other things that you can do. This is all, again, personal preference, but especially when you paint a sky like this, you're definitely going to want to bring down the highlights just a little bit, and then you're going to want to up the exposure, because this allows the previously non-exposed parts of the sky to then become exposed. Anyways, if this is too complicated for you, obviously you don't have to. So I'm going to deselect off of this paintbrush tool. So now we are again controlling the whole photo, and I think that the sky came out pretty well. You can't see the line where it crosses into the main photo. Next thing I'm going to do, again, I'm on the main photo. I'm not on the sky anymore, as I'm going to up the saturation. And I'm just going to up the saturation. I'm going to fix these trees, because these trees, I know, in reality, are not this kind of weird brownish color. So I'm going to fix the colors in a minute. I just want to up that saturation, really expose these headlights right here and these caterpillar tracks. I'm going to mess around with this green stool in a minute as well. This photo is pretty well lit, although I am going to expose it just a tad about 0.515. For that. Again, I don't want to blow out these sky modifications that we just made. I'm going to move down to HSL and color. Again, I'm going to mess around with this hue of these trees, because I want to make these more accurate. It appears that is not the correct hue. As you can see, when I slide these, nothing is really happening. There we go. So Lightroom is identifying this hue as yellow, because when you select yellow, does that. So I'm going to make these very green, as I know the trees were very green, and then I'm just going to up the saturation, not a whole bunch, but now these trees are correctly green. Right, I'm going to go to I'm going to mess around with the stool. Oopsie. Okay. Alright, and next thing I want to do is, you may notice that there's quite a bit of noise, all those grain up there. Granted, this is obviously still an uncompressed image, but I would like to do noise reduction. So I'm going to collapse this tab. I'm going to go into detail, which is sharpening, and then I'm just going to add slight bit of noise reduction with some detail. As you can see, that has reduced the noise a little bit. However, it has gotten rid of some sharpness, so I'm going to let Lightroom finish doing. Again, if you don't know, this little circle down here means Lightroom is still performing tasks. As you can see, that did kind of do a little bit of de-sharpening, but it did reduce the noise, so I'm happy with this result. Alright, let's move on to the next image. Alright, and the next image here is this panoramic I did of Mount Washington. Oh no, this is Jefferson, Adams, Madison, I believe, this was actually 3 raw files that I stitched together in Photoshop, but it's very hard to find the lines. Anyway, so to edit this is not a raw file, this is a JPEG. As you can see, the rest of these are .raws, as you can see right there, but this is a JPEG, so we're not going to be able to do as much with this as we did before. A few things I want to do to this. Obviously, I want to fix these color of these trees. Again, these are not very green. That's in fact the first thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to go back down to the HSL and color. I'm going to select green. I'm going to change the hue of these trees. I believe this was actually a camera error. That's why they were all doing this. So these trees are a bit greener, and I'm going to go to the yellow tab again and do that. Right, now that we have fixed the hue of the trees, there's a few other things I want to do. I'm going to want to raise the general exposure a tad. I'm going to want to raise the shadows quite a bit, just to give everything kind of that look. I'm going to want to lower the highlights, and that's about all I can do in Lightroom. I do also want to go into Photoshop, and I would like to add some birds, like a PNG of birds. This is something that photographers do quite a lot. It may surprise you, but a lot of stuff like that, like birds. A lot of photographers will actually add extra interesting clouds as in a PNG format. Which may surprise you, but it's just a very common occurrence. And yes, that's all I can do with this photo in Lightroom. All right, and the next and last photo is going to be this one of Arethusa Falls in the winter. This was completely frozen. For anyone wondering, there's no running water at all, despite the fact that it was 40 degrees out. Now, obviously, first thing we're going to have to do with this photo is fix these trees. They have no color and they're all dark. So we're going to want to up these shadows a lot. As you can see, these trees are now somewhat lightened, and now I'm going to want to up the saturation again, because these trees are not very light. Again, I'm going to want to go down into my color tab right here, and I'm going to want to locate which color these trees are registering under. So it appears they are registering under green, which is good, meaning that I can just up the saturation for the green, change the hue a little bit, and do the same with yellow. Perfect. Alright, now that we have fixed these trees for the most part, I'm going to want to fix the highlights, which is this area up here. Not going to want to do that. I'm going to want to just drag down those highlights and up the general exposure again. Right, now we're a bit better in the photo than we were before, because now that these trees are nicely exaggerated, and this is more exposed. I'm going to want to give it a little bit of contrast, just for that extra clarity, and then I'm going to want to give it a slight S curve, which again may seem counterintuitive, but the S curve is just a general photo editing tactic that can be used on any photo, especially after it's already been edited for corrections. Not gonna need to really add any sharpening. I'm just gonna lower the default, because by default Lightroom gives a photo a certain amount of sharpening. And so anyways, if you have enjoyed, make sure to subscribe. Again, these photos are edited in the flat stock style. Obviously, you can edit more dynamic, where you would drag down shadows and make everything more dramatic. But this is just how I edit. This is how I've always edited, and this is the most profitable way of editing, because it makes the subject and whatever very, very clear and precise. So if you have enjoyed, make sure to subscribe. I do a wide range of I have a wide variety of content on my channel, but this is a main topic. So see you next time.